Field, just outside the city of Milwaukee. We've done natural history tours with Lindblad, Alaska, Galapagos. We didn't quite know what to expect, but we found that with the historians and the archaeologists who are on ship and the nature of the trip, that this has been very, very instructive and a wonderful experience into the Baltic countries. You know, these are remote areas, and it's unlikely that Americans would travel to the Baltic nations without having this kind of organization and the ease that is provided by being on ship and going to all these cities. Today we're in the village, or the city of Gdansk, Poland, formerly known as Danzig. It is an incredible city. I think the most moving part of it is to realize that all these wonderful buildings were once destroyed in World War II and have been rebuilt in a way that absolutely resembles the original architecture and construction. And I think the biggest realization for us on this trip is to see what the people of the Baltic republics and Poland have undergone during the period of Nazi and then subsequently Russian invasion and occupation. Their resilience has been most impressive. Tonight's meeting with President Lech Walesa has a special poignancy and meaning because he symbolized solidarity and the Polish resistance.
Mówimy o tym, co też doświadczyliście, każdy z was poznał gdzieś tam Polaka.
You have come across some Polish people here or there.
Zauważyliście, że nawet biedni, ale jesteśmy dumni, honorowi i demokratyczni.
And you must have realized that no matter how poor we are, which we are proud and democratic, freedom-loving people.
Gdzie dwóch Polaków, co najmniej 3 partie polityczne.
Which joins several different nations, and we're going to visit some absolutely charming cities as well as little villages, very scenic passageways, a lot of islets and nature stops. It really is a great mix of different activities, and I think we'll get a really good feel for why this area is so special and was so important throughout history.
We're beginning now our great expedition into the Baltic. We're leaving behind Russia and St. Petersburg, and we will be following this bay almost all the way out to the main Baltic Sea.
Okay, we are right here now on board the Pommern in the western harbor of Mariehamn on the Åland Islands. This vessel here, she was originally built to carry nitrate from the nitrate ports in Chile and west coast of South America. But then when Gustav Eriksson bought her in 1923, then she was generally used in what was called the grain race.
Today we're in Gotland, the medieval town, and I'm very, very pleased to have you all here since this is my home. I live here in Visby, and this is a medieval town, and as you saw today, it's a lot of history, a lot of ruins and a lot of roses.
So today we explored Riga, capital city of Latvia today, but definitely regional center of Baltic states, and Latvians would be proud to say one day United States of Baltics. Well, that's still a dream. We are part of European Union, but still we are biggest and central of Baltic states.
We have hot dog and beer out on Sunday today.
We sailed 170 nautical miles overnight through the Baltic Sea until reaching the country of Poland, right in front of Westerplatte, which is the place where the first bomb in World War II was dropped. Our local Polish guides have taken us to explore the beautiful city of Gdansk, and seeing in what great condition it is now, it is very hard to imagine that it was completely destroyed by bombs during World War II.
Another gorgeous day in the Baltic Sea.
This is the most easterly point of Denmark, and I've spent tremendous amount of time here. Just as a child was growing up, it means a lot to me. This is kind of the cultural point where different cultures that we are meeting, they would pass right by here. The Danes, the Swedes, and all the way over from the Far East and coming up from Germany. It's a pretty wonderful place, and I am truly enjoying it.
We entered the Trava River this morning and came ashore to Lübeck, the most beautiful medieval city. It's a World Heritage Site, a UNESCO listing, and it's the most famous of the Hanseatic centres. Some of the parts of the city were bombed in the last war, but other parts remain intact. And as you wander around these wonderful streets, you can see this fantastic brickwork, because stone was a real problem for them here, but bricks they could produce, and that's what they did. They produced a wonderful architecture which is all around you. We have now spent 10 days travelling through the Baltic Sea and have a good idea of the kind of titanic power struggles that went on in this area.
My family comes from one of the Baltic states, so for me the important thing is that guests who come here to travel learn something about the Baltic states, that it's an area of the world that you don't hear a lot about in the United States. And if anything, I hope that they would go away with a better understanding of the history, both in the past but the history now, of how the people live now and how unique they are, each individual country, and hopefully they go away with an affection in their heart for what is the Baltic states.
The British Isles is a fabulous trip. It's diverse, not only cultures, history, ancient history, natural history, chance to meet some of the local people, hear about the local history, local cultures, and just a real diverse voyage.
Is my name. I'm the owner of this establishment, Chined, in Inisheer. The island is one of the 3 Aran Islands. It is the furthest east. In Irish it means Inisheer, which means east in our native language. There's 260 people live here. There's a lot of tradition in the island. Irish is still the main language, the native language. Before the tourism, people lived on fishing, farming has gone back also. Anyway, maybe there isn't enough acreage for. Well, the history is very important, because no matter what happens, we have to keep in touch with our past, because that's why we're here, and we should be proud of where we come from and what we're doing here, and try, when we leave at about 110 years of age, that the island is more beautiful than when we came into it.
Well, my name is Ewe Zijlstra. I'm organist in this church, and it was a very great honor to play for so many people from National Geographic. This is the first time, I think it is the first time, in Harlingen. And yeah, we have here a very big organ, one of the most beautiful organs in Holland. I'm 15 years now. I play the services at Sunday and also concerts. Organ is my instrument. It has so many colors. being an organist, you are the conductor of a big orchestra with the trumpets and the flutes in your own. It is a wonderful experience. An organ player and another musician has to go till he is 18, 19 years old. You have to be always very fit. 2 hands and 2 feet. It is really fun. And for most people in a service is the music played by an organist more important than the words by a bishop. It's one language, music. You see, you hear and you feel the sea. It's wonderful to be here. I like it. It's my place.
The castle itself is known as the Tower House. In a nutshell, it is a protected farm dwelling belonging to a member of the upper echelons of 15th, 16th century Ireland. They were also called 10-pound castles. Why? Because the King of England at the time, to encourage his loyal subjects to the crown, to stabilise their colony here in Ireland, offered a subsidy of £10, equivalent to about £250,000 at the time, to build these castles to defend themselves so they could keep a good strong hold on the native indigenous Irish.
Oh, this is a neat structure. I'm really glad that we got waylaid and had to come here.
Yesterday we were caught in the rain and the wind was blowing gale force and we were drenched, but we were walking in the most picturesque village. It was really a great day.
Well, I tell you, I'm most impressed. I was going to stay on board the ship and then the rain started to let up a little bit. And boy, am I glad I came over. What impresses me most so far is the series of fence rows, everywhere. It's remarkable. It's beautiful.
The sea trail along the coast here, enjoying the last piece of Scandinavian summer, which we have here now.
I'm eating blackberries. I'm a hunter-gatherer, Mesolithic hunter-gatherer. They're wonderful. They've been doing this in this area for about 11,000 years. I'm an example of continuity.
I thought it was beautiful, actually. I was quite intrigued by it. Guides together with the observations and the weather. And the sea were just breathtaking.
The sea was
yeah, it was lovely.
And now we're heading to the beer and herrings. You cannot have been on Bornholm unless you have tasted the beer and the herrings. That's definitely a must.
Some people probably like it with extra salt. And you know, to preserve
Scotland, and this island has had a strategic and commercial significance, even from prehistoric times. It was then important to the Germanic traders of the Hanseatic League, and it came under the power of a number of different nations. It came under the power of the Danes and then the Swedes. It was also a place that in the medieval times had a wonderful stone wall built around it and towers. This was one place that had stone. Most of the area around here in Sweden proper also had a paucity of stone. So not only was the stone used here, it was exported to the mainland for building there and also exported as far as Germany. We went to the Fornsal Museum, which has marvelous collections in different time periods. It begins with the Vikings, and actually the pre-Vikings, the picture stones of the peoples who lived here in the 5th century, and it goes all the way up through the Viking era and beyond to the 11th century when the Vikings became Christianized. It's all from Gotland. They found everything here. Some of them they found very well preserved because they were in churches or other buildings, and some they found in cemeteries, but they have done a wonderful job of presenting them historically. The runic script was created in the 2nd century, even before these stones were made, and they were used for over 1,000 years. In fact, we have runic inscriptions from the 14th century. And even after Latin became the language of the lands up here, people continued to use the runic script for simple things, to put on gravestones, for example, or to say, "This is my comb." Yeah, they came not only on these stones, but on combs and other household things. This here, this round bit, it looks like it has spokes, we believe is an image of the sun, and they found the sun sacred. They also had these mystical animals that they drew not in the precise form that these animals appear, but somewhat differently. So the archaeologists imagined that this had a magical significance.
My name is Blake Kirk, and I'm a retired soldier from the United States Army. And we're in the American Cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach in Normandy. Like I said, it's simply a very humbling experience to be here for me. I have, nothing but respect and gratitude to the men who are buried here. It's the most egalitarian place I've ever seen in the military because you've got privates buried next to officers and next to generals. I served in both the 101st and the 82nd Airborne Divisions, and there's a fair number of men from the regiments I served with that are buried here. Those are the men who created the traditions that I lived by for 20-something years. And so for me, it really is like a pilgrimage. Something I felt I've owed these men for years and years and years. What we're looking at today is a major part of the history of Western Europe. And I think this is part of keeping awareness of what happened in the Second World War and the years after alive. It's a reminder of the price that we have to be prepared to pay if we want to defend the freedoms that we have. And you just have to hope that we never again have to build another cemetery like this anywhere.
We wondered if we were committing harakiri. But our guide Gunnar is a very experienced cyclist, and he's picked a beautiful route up through the town, along the top of the cliffs, and in between beautiful wooded routes out to the coast. And the lovely thing about this site is it has taken us on bespoke cycling paths which have been built by the Swedes, they're great outdoors people, all the way along the coast, and we've ended up on the top of these sheer limestone cliffs looking out along the west side of Gotland, the coast of Sweden. That's a good shot.
It was amazing to get outside of the city and be in the fresh air and the countryside. It was beautiful.
It was great. A little exercise.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the downhill portion.
The wind at our back.
Yes.
And that is, you're in to shoot architecture and the weather is not made for architecture. So what do? There's a couple things you have to do. First of all, you have to realize that the quality of light and the light that we have is the most important tool as a photographer. You need good light. If you shoot something magnificent in ordinary light, it's going to look terrible. You could shoot a line of hanging underwear in beautiful light and it'll be a beautiful photograph. So light makes it. And what we have today is a very overcast, soft, low contrast light. It's very good for shooting people, faces, flowers. The trick is to let the light dictate how you shoot. And let's start to learn to use this foreground. We have a lot of flowers here, and when I say get close, I mean almost shooting through the flowers to get what you want, to add impact. One of the most rewarding things about being on a trip like this is to see the growth in the passengers' photography skills from the beginning of the voyage until the end of the voyage. You know, a lot of folks start at the beginning as kind of just aimless snap shooters, and by the end of the trip, they're really first-class travel photographers. That's because we work with them every day, we do some critique sessions, and it's a learning experience. It's fun, but you can't help but learn a little along the way.